Retro Rewind. Retro Rewind. 20 years of radio history, celebrating over 30 years of the greatest songs ever made.
Retro Rewind. Retro Rewind. One-on-one.
Hi, this is Jon Secada, and you listen to Retro Rewind with Dave Harris.
This is Retro Rewind. Retro Rewind.
Hi everybody, it's Dave Harris from Retro Rewind, and I gotta tell you, it's a thrill to be hanging out with a guy that I admire a lot. Met him about 18 years ago when I worked in Nashville, and here he is 18 years later going strong. It's Jon Secada. Thank you so much.
Good to see you, Dave.
Good seeing you, pal.
Yeah.
This new album that you have, I think, is just amazing. Had a chance to listen to it on the way down. One of the perks you kind of get in this business, the album isn't out till March the 30th, but you know, I know people. And,
there you go.
You know, connections. And, you know, first of all, I was really blown away with the production and some of the arrangements. We're talking songs like Spanish Harlem, Benny King, right?
Yeah.
And La Bamba, which, you know, Richie Valens actually took and adapted for himself because, you know, that was an older song anyway as well. You know, just mentioning just a couple of songs, My Way, of course, that Elvis made famous as well, and of course Frank kind of, I think, did a version too here and there. But
Yes.
so let's talk a little bit about your album's classics. Now you have two versions, obviously, right?
Yes.
One for English and one for the Spanish market.
Yep.
And
I wanted to do a CD that encompassed just songs that I grew up listening to, and those are just songs that are subconsciously have been were a part of my life as a kid, and songs that also reflected kind of like, I guess, what I think was the beginning of the idea of mainstream America appreciating songs that had some type of Latin flair to them. So most of those songs were also recorded in Spanish. So I also wanted that kind of feel to the record. So make sure that the CD had that kind of relationship between what the song represented in English, but also what they represented in Spanish.
Right, and you know, to each genre or each you know, for the Spanish and the English markets or fans, you know, they know different versions, you know, that they probably grew up with as well. You know, I grew up with Freddie Fender before the next Teardrop Falls, and I thought that was great. And of course, you know, as a 4-year-old, when the song hit #1, and he does Spanish in the middle of the song, and you know, and to this day, you know, for me, I don't know what the words are, but you know, I just know the song, and it impacted me. You know, this little white kid living in Kentucky, you know. And so I thought that was really a nice touch what you did there, because you know Freddie's no longer with us, but I think he gave a nice rendition, and it's really interesting that you know, it still sounds like Jon Secada, but at the same time it sounds like a tip of the hat to the, you know, an homage, if you will, to the original.
It's a tribute.
Artist.
For me, this CD is a tribute to not only the music, but some of the artists that performed it, especially that song. I mean, Before the Next Teardrop Falls I did want to play tribute to Freddie Fender, which is one of pioneer, you know, in the crossover element, especially as a Mexican American.
You recorded this album in Nashville, right?
Yes.
Which is my old stomping grounds. Now, why did you choose Nashville? Was it because of the musicians? Or?
The idea of the CD came about through conversations that I had with James Stroud, which at the time was what I was working with, and those conversations led to kind of the thought of, well, you know, let's go to Nashville and do it there. And he had already the core of what he wanted the CD to sound like. So we recorded the CD. Once we had the arrangements done, the CD we did in 3 or 4 days. It really came pretty, very, very natural. And the recording process there was amazing.
Now, there's a lot of great strings on this album as well. You know, especially with today's technology, where they can kind of maybe even, you know, use keyboards or this, but this is the real deal.
The real deal.
Yeah,
real deal.
And you can it really fills out the sound. I think of that. Is this one of your, because you know, each album I'm sure is something, the one that you're most proud of at the moment, but I get the feeling just because it's your latest, but also because this is kind of what influenced you as an artist.
Yeah, it means a lot to me. It's another grassrooted record that deals with the history of what I feel has been for me what the crossover world represents. And that's something that means a lot to me, to be able to do this type of record right now in my career like that.
How did you go about choosing some of those songs? Was it a tedious process?
No, not at all. I mean, choosing the songs came pretty natural because there's songs that were just so easy to be able to pinpoint. I mean, in terms of recognizable melodies and memories of me kind of listening to these songs when I was a child.
Yeah. Do you have any special memories on some of these that you just mentioned, like?
Just remnants of the process of growing up, and either at parties or in conversation or kind of in family gatherings. Just listen to some of this music because it's the music that our parents love to listen to.
Yeah, and of course some of them were on the radio when we were kids ourselves. So, do you feel like I think you've been able to, do both. I think you've been like not pioneer, but you've been like a bearer of the torch for, English and Spanish, bridging the gap between the two, and back 10 years ago, it was really humming, when Ricky Martin and
the early 90s was the beginning of, I think, of a big wave of what the crossover world came to be in music and as a Latinos period, in the U.S. Yeah. So I'm proud of the fact that I was a part of that wave, and of course, as a result, then we had the careers of Ricky and Mark and Jennifer, and so many great artists that Shakira, Enrique. I mean.
Right.
It all started kind of in the early 90s.
Well, it's almost like, Gloria had been established.
Yep.
And then, by giving you an opportunity and you making the most of it, I could definitely tell you're someone that kind of pushed it. You kind of gave back as well.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
And when I think of that movement, I definitely think of you. I think a lot of people do. So I really enjoy this album.
No, thank you, brother.
And
I enjoy making it. Trust me.
Yeah, it's going to be a great album. I think that will, it might even define when people think back on some of your releases. I know you've had the accolades, the Grammys, the 3 million copies, just the U.S. alone of your debut album. But I think something like this, will be one that people can look back and say that was one of his good albums that had.
I would like it to be kind of a staple. Who knows? It could be the part one of another CD.
That's right.
If it's something that people identify with enough.
Are you going to tour behind this one at some point?
I would like to do some shows, absolutely. But this show, of course, requires it's got to have that orchestra behind it.
Yeah. Now you've done that too a little bit in the past. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we'll figure it out to put it together.
Well, I've noticed you have great fans. We appreciate the fine people here tonight, and we at the Anthology in San Diego.
What a beautiful place, beautiful club, and it's been wonderful because it's starting with the jazz CD. It's a kind of a wave of what I wanted the classics CD to be like.
Right.
So it's kind of a part two, continuation of exploring really kind of my roots and what's important to me and in my heart in terms of what I feel has been something that's been very influential.
Well, I think the fans are going to embrace it, and I noticed tonight you have a lot of fun with your fans still. The lady on stage, and
love it.
You're really getting into it, and she was, we saw her, man. I don't know if you saw her. She was.
You know what?
Woo,
I live for those moments.
Yeah.
I do.
Well, you're a very good performer as
Thank
well.
you, brother.
We're so glad to have you on the show. We appreciate you being here.
Dave, thank you so much.
And thanks for having us,
me,
John.
Man. Thank you.
Jon Secada, one of my favorite artists of the '90s, still going strong. One of my favorite singers of all time. You've got that voice,
Thanks,
man.
Appreciate
Jon Secada. Thank you so much.
Retro Rewind. Visit Retro Rewind's website at www.retrorewind.com. RetroRewind.com. Games and links to everything retro, from recording artists to TV shows and movies from the 80s and 90s.